Welcome, everyone.
Thank you.
Everyone feeling the ascending wave of the full moon? So how is everyone doing figuring out what you want to be when you grow up? This is kind of that kind of full moon opportunity to decide whether you are realizing and fulfilling what you had dreamed as a child, as a soul, and fulfilling and mastering and manifesting your true destiny. How many of you feel like you're in the exact center of your path? I don't see any hands raised. There's one hand raised, okay. 2 hands raised. Well, I just have some news for you, dear ones. You're always in the exact center of your path, whether you know it or not. And many times it takes an entire journey through lifetimes to realize how that is absolutely true. And what appeared to be a detour along the way was actually an important aspect of your journey to evolve to a greater conscious and more purposeful manifestation of your true destiny. So this full moon is quite profound because how many of you are aware of the royal stars? There's a couple here. The royal stars, there's 4 of them, one associated with each of the 4 directions. Aldebaran, Antares, Fomalhaut, and Regulus are the 4 royal stars. This full moon occurs at 10 degrees, with the sun at 10 degrees of Libra. The moon at 10 degrees of Libra, the sun at 10 degrees of Aries. The nodal axis is at 13 degrees of Leo, 13 degrees of Aquarius, and the royal stars of Antares and Aldebaran are at 10 degrees of Gemini and 10 degrees of Sagittarius. Now, if you picture that in a chart, you'll see that it forms a 6-point star. It's called the Seal of Solomon. And because the royal stars are involved, and if that weren't enough, if you cast the full moon chart for Mount Shasta, it's got 4 or 5 degrees Pisces rising, which is also conjunct the royal star of Fomalhaut. And that's true all along the west coast here. So many may be feeling that we're at a profound turning point, both globally and personally, of becoming more conscious of the nature of our true destiny, so that we can more deeply commit to and dedicate our lives to a particular path through which the impact that we have becomes effective and manifest as a purposeful goal. Mars and Saturn are in Capricorn, creating what's called a T-square, squaring the full moon axis. And whenever we have a T-square active, it's like an archer drawing his bow or her bow. The planets in opposition, the celestials in opposition, the sun, moon is always in opposition, are being squared by Mars and Saturn, and they are the tension pulling the bow, driving toward a particular empty spot in the chart, which is its resolution in Cancer. The sign of Cancer is associated with how deeply we feel at home with ourselves, at home with one another, and at home on planet Earth. So as the counterpoint to your greater impact, your greater destiny, how does that greater destiny enable or empower you to feel nurtured at home and embraced in your present circumstance? Many have this real dedication to their medicine path, fulfillment of their destiny. And yet when they come home, they feel disconnected or there's a certain emptiness there in people who are overly dedicated to their career, what's called a career. So that when they come home, the same energy or fulfillment, the same nurturing quality that they achieve in being a medicine influence on others around them and the greater world around them is not mirrored as deeply in their own personal experience of being nurtured and embraced on the human level. So how many of you have that dichotomy going where you give yourself completely to your medicine journey, and yet when you come home and the lights are off, it's like, oh, you know, I'm not feeling really nurtured personally in my own home or with the people I'm most closely connected to. So that's the dichotomy right now. That's the opportunity of this full moon, particularly with the sun being in Aries and the moon in Libra. That is a relational axis. It's offering us the opportunity to dedicate ourselves as deeply to our own nurturance as we do dedicate ourselves to the nurturance of others. So no matter how deeply you are effective in your medicine, in your healing vocation, in doing that for others, can you also receive that same kind of nurturance from another or from the earth herself, and feeling as deeply healed and embraced as you do in the medicine journey that you've chosen. So what's really beautiful about this particular full moon is that the Libra full moon, the faster moving celestial is always the transiting, it's called the transiting planet, the active component of the aspect involved. And the moon, because she's the fastest in relationship to our earthly journey here, in terms of movement through the sky, she will always be the transiting celestial. So the moon quickly moves through Libra, and Libra is ruled by Venus. Venus is her guide. So wherever Venus is particularly powerful and important to this fully embodied full moon in Libra. And right on the full moon, she has just moved into her own sign of Taurus. She's currently, because as we approach the full moon on Saturday morning at 5:37 a.m. Pacific time, the moon has already moved into Libra today on Friday the 30th at about 11 a.m. this morning. And Venus, the ruling celestial, the guide of our lunar current, is moving into her own sign of Taurus Friday tonight at 9:54 p.m. So we're kind of in a transition zone right now, and right around 10 p.m. We'll feel that deepening into the beauty and power of this full moon, landing us to be more present with the fire that we've been experiencing, and remembering to enjoy the experience of being embodied. Taurus is a sign of incarnation. Taurus is a sign of taking on a body that clothes areas of spirit. So what would promote or encourage us to be more embodied?
Food, sex, rock and roll.
Yeah. Love, pleasure, sensuality. Right? Those are all words associated with Venus, particularly in Taurus. So when you extend yourself and give a loved one a massage, Venus and Taurus, what does that do? It encourages the spirit to become more embodied. Because the more pleasure you feel in your embodied experience, the more that your spirit will want to come home and fully embody. You know, it's quite common when people go through traumatic experiences that they leave their body. It's just too uncomfortable to be here. So for this full moon, starting about 10 p.m. tonight, it's important to take this opportunity, even though Mars and Saturn are challenging you to be all you can be, to enjoy the experience of being embodied and embrace the pleasure and opportunity to experience the beauty of this world. This can also be just by going out into the natural world and hugging a tree and just reminding yourself of the honor and blessing of being in a body. So how many of you enjoy being in your body? Got lots of hands raised here. So this is a beautiful opportunity for you to do so purposely. And sometimes the best thing you can do with Venus and Taurus is just give someone else a hug and just let them know that it's safe to be present in their body.
Seems like planting a garden or putting in flowers.
Flowers is also connected with Venus, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so the pleasure principle will be quite present throughout April as a counterpoint to the dynamism of Mars in Capricorn, applying to Saturn and then to Pluto over the month of April. And this being not only personally but historically one of the most profound months that I've seen in quite some time. Is as we know, Pluto has been in Capricorn since 2008. Saturn just entered Capricorn, its ruler. So the contest for power, influence, the patriarchal way in its dark side has surfaced in a quite dramatic way. That's why we're watching, particularly the young people, rising up and becoming a counterpoint to the dominant culture. So Mars has just entered Capricorn, so he's looking to Saturn. He's actually what's called exalted in Capricorn, because Mars provides the drive for us to achieve full adult, mature stature. Capricorn is rising to your full potential as an adult soul. So since 2008, we've been challenged by petty tyrants who demand that we rise to our full power and stand as mature adult souls in commanding our inner authority and taking personal command of our lives. And this is particularly true for the women who have been given an opportunity to command their own inner integrity and command respect of those who had been dominant in the culture as it stands today. So this is all now because Mars is our personal experience, that the personal experiences that drive us to achieve our goals, to realize and attain our true desire. And in Capricorn, that's to rise to our full potential and be taken seriously and respected for the inner gifts that we carry in relationship to the society that we are a part of. So Mars in Capricorn drives for standing and respect within the community that you're a part of. And since Saturn is already there with Pluto, Mars will reach Saturn on the 2nd of April. And whenever we talk about a conjunction, we're not just talking about a daily event. We're talking about the beginning of a new cycle. And when Mars and Saturn come together, Mars and Saturn initiate a new 2-year cycle of manifestation. So there's a certain drive now for us to get on board, to really become aware of the talents that we carry, and to be more focused and determined to take our place as a meaningful and contributing member of our society and our communities. How many of you felt like it's time for you to take your place, to really know who you are and command the respect of others and making a contribution that is meaningful, not just to yourself, but to others? So that April is about really taking our power. And the new cycle of manifestation really beginning in April, we're sensing that we're kind of on the verge of that kind of clarity and that calling being made clear, so that we have no doubt about where solid ground within our own lives may be formed, the place that we stand, so that we can make a dedicated contribution to the world around us. So if that weren't enough, Mars combining with Saturn, Mars in Capricorn looking to Saturn as his guide, he combines with his own guide on the 2nd of April. And Pluto is more advanced in Capricorn than Saturn is currently. So Mars will then gradually approach Pluto. And by April 26th, Mars will actually reach Pluto, the Mars-Pluto conjunction. So we see the month of April being straddled in the beginning by a Mars-Saturn conjunction, and then a Mars-Pluto conjunction at the end of April. So by the end of April, we will have begun to set the ball in motion in terms of where we stand and making the effort required to become more conscious and giving and participating in the community around us, the world around us, in terms of what we have accomplished and achieved within us. And then as Mars approaches Pluto by the end of the month, we may find that there are certain others who don't particularly like who we are or what we're doing, who may appear as petty tyrants, to challenge our right to stand in our own authority and make a contribution that's worthy of our inner experience. So Mars and this particular combination will continue throughout will repeat itself throughout Pluto's remaining transit through Capricorn until about 2022. It's a 2-year cycle. But Saturn will only be in Capricorn for 2-3 years. So this is the prelude this month to the culminating pattern of Mars conjunct Saturn and then Pluto in 2020, when Jupiter will also have arrived in Capricorn. So we're getting a little preview of coming attractions in terms of how we have the courage to personally take command of our own being and take a stand that integrity demands. Because Capricorn is about our spine. It rules the skeletal structure. And our skeletons are what empower us to rise to our full height, so that we can then be impactful on the people around us. And Capricorn is the culmination of a long cycle from Aries 2 through 10 phases of evolution. So that by the time we've reached Capricorn, connected with Saturn, we have gained a tremendous amount of experience in testing out and perfecting and honing our wisdom through direct impact in our daily lives. So by the time we've reached Capricorn, there's a certain wisdom we carry by virtue of the experiences we've had in this life or in other lives that gives us interpersonal authority to speak with a certain command and the wisdom associated with that. So if you're looking for validation by status quo or the current culture and feeling like you need to be acknowledged in terms of your mastery, like having a PhD or some kind of degree that this current society acknowledges as masterful. The mature Capricorn realizes that your inner authority rests upon your personal experience, because you are unique in the journey that's unfolded in your own life, in your own personal journey. And you can speak from the wisdom gained through that experience, and that gives you the authority to speak the truth concerning a certain quality of being. So you don't need to look any further than the wisdom you gained or gleaned from your own personal experience in life, and share that with integrity with others as a means through which you can add value and purpose to the lives of others. So do you all have confidence in speaking the wisdom you gained through your own journey here on planet Earth? I mean, you realize that is your key to inner authority. It doesn't preclude you from going through studies and becoming a PhD in a particular area and being acknowledged by society because of your commitment to that study. But that's not the source of your inner authority. That's not that's not the means through which you become acknowledged and recognized as an authority in that particular quality of being. So I'm emphasizing that because this month, this coming month in April, may be your opportunity to recognize and acknowledge the wisdom you've gained, so that you have no hesitation in standing strong in integrity in your own internal authority and sharing that wisdom with others around you as an opportunity for them to gain from your own personal experience. So are any of you teachers there? Do you share your knowledge with others in a more traditional way? Okay. So if you do, then here's your opportunity to come forward a little more visibly in your own personal life experience, because your own personal life experience knows how you've applied and realized the gift of what you're teaching to others on a personal level through example in your life will become much more meaningful to others, because those of us who are teachers can hide behind the teaching or hide behind the credential that we've received that's based upon the wisdom or knowledge or experience of others who we perceive as more professionally qualified than we are to speak on a particular subject. When in actual fact, you are as fully qualified as anyone to speak from your own personal experience. So do we have any questions at this point? Go ahead.
I have a question about the Mars in Capricorn. If you are particularly born with your Mars in Capricorn, or if you have that in your chart, do you think it is a more embodied experience for that individual, or is it going to be a collective for everyone, even if their Mars isn't in Capricorn?
It's collected for these Mars, Saturn, and Pluto, and beyond, Jupiter, and beyond the outer planets. They create a collective mood. And the personal celestials, from Mars inward toward the Sun, they offer opportunities for personal embodiment of those larger issues. So when you have a personal planet like Mars, then you become a personal embodiment of that opportunity for others. Everybody's feeling it, but you then are a living example on a personal human level of how to embody that larger principle, which is integrity in motion. And this would be particularly important for you to know when Mars actually returns to your natal Mars. Do you know what degree your Mars is?
I just know it's in Capricorn. I don't know what degree
Okay.
it's in.
Well, there's a distinct difference between the day before and the day after Mars actually reaches its natal position. Because the month or two before the Mars return, you feel kind of out of it. You're just not all here. You're disoriented. Your energy is lower than usual because you're in the 12th house phase of that return. And the day that it returns, it's like somebody just switched the lights on, and it's like you're rocking and rolling in a whole new level cycle of manifestation. And this is particularly powerful for you because Saturn, depending on where your Mars is, may have actually reached your Mars or not. Probably not, because Saturn's at the early degrees of Capricorn. But so your whole life then has been an opportunity for you to act with integrity in the pursuit of your life goals and demonstrate that integrity to others. Would you say that's true?
Absolutely. I feel like aligning the heart with action and speaking at a professional level with boundaries, with the work that I do, has been my passion, although I feel like I've lost my voice because of the more the patriarchal, bureaucratic ways of the system. And I'm trying to figure out ways where I can actually just step into my authority and actually start teaching that and providing a space for people to become in line with their heart, with their professionalism, and their boundaries, communication.
Yeah. Exactly. So this whole period of time, depending on where your Mars is, with Pluto having gone over your Mars, it's like you've really had a few rounds with some petty tyrants.
Yes, very petty.
In the guise of the patriarchal sorcery that has dominated our culture for thousands of years. So I would say that you are a system buster in terms of modeling a new kind of integrity that can stand in her power, as well as the acknowledged form of power that's so dominant in our present culture. So that's, I would consult your ephemeris if you have one and check out when Mars transits over your Mars and mark that as a beginning point for your next cycle of manifestation. So also, April being a significant month, straddled by the Mars-Saturn and Mars-Pluto conjunctions. Right in the middle of April, we have Chiron, which I talked quite a bit about in my last talk, entering Aries. And that shift occurs for the first time on April 17th, right after the new moon, on the 15th of April. And Chiron, as I mentioned before, associated particularly with those who are on a healing journey and a healing path, older souls who have made a soul contract to do a giveaway by experiencing a particular quality of woundedness within the human realm, so that they can then be uniquely qualified to act as agents of healing for that particular group of people. Chiron has been in Pisces for the last 8 years, completing a 51-year cycle of journeying through the wounded nature of the human experience, so that a deeper, more profound avenue of love, conscious and purposeful healing agency can be realized to address the mortal wound of being in a body and experiencing the mortal matrix as a counterpoint to the spirit. And when Chiron begins a whole new cycle, as it did in the late 60s, 69, it shifted into Aries in 1969 throughout the early to middle 70s. A whole new generation concentrated on self-realization emerged in a rather dramatic way. And we started a whole new cycle of understanding the nature of our experience here and the means through which we could be, not only heal ourselves, but act as a healing agents to one another. So this is quite a dramatic shift. Chiron today has just entered the 29th degree of Pisces. So Chiron will be in the last and highest frequency of Pisces from now until April 17th. And the last degree of Pisces I associate with the all-seeing eye. It's the spirit hovering over the deep before the first act of creation. It's like all that has been is coming into full prophetic view and vision, so that as the new cycle is about to begin, all that we've achieved, learned, and experienced through the cycle that's completing since the late 60s is now about to take on a new, more active, conscious, and purposeful expression in this world. As Chiron enters Aries, Chiron will hover over the Aries Pisces boundary throughout 2018. I won't fully enter Aries until later this year, but we're getting the first window into this new phase of radical awakening that Chiron and Aries will signal, where we finally now begin the active phase of expressing our deep inspiration and connection with the journey we've been experiencing for the last 8 years in relationship to the higher power, and finding our personal place within it. Because when a planet shifts from Pisces to Aries, a new cycle begins where we have the opportunity to rediscover who we are as individuals and become a personal individual agent of that greater inspiration that is pouring out from the source, so that we become more active and dynamic in the way in which we set a whole new phase of manifestation into motion. So this is quite a fascinating turn of events in April. Does anyone here have Chiron and Aries? You know, born within in 1969 to about 1976. So you would have Chiron and Aries.
Okay.
Anyone else?
June at 69?
69, 60, yeah, I believe it was 69, 68, 69 to about 76.
Then yes.
Yeah,
I'll check my chart.
I just had my Chiron return. So
Uh-huh.
it's what, 26 degrees, I think, in Pisces.
Oh.
So what you're saying is this like a closure to an older cycle, and moving into Aries, it's like this new dynamic phase.
Yeah.
I'm kind of feeling that in my personal life.
Mhm.
Is this a collective thing too? 'Cause
Yeah,
it's a
everybody's going to be feeling
generational
this.
kind of thing, right?
Yeah, everybody's going to. When we talk about it, the transit, everybody feels it.
Yeah.
Just if your personal matrix is more connected to that, then you will become a personal incarnation of what everybody's feeling. Become a catalyst for it. So Chiron and Aries has your right to go after what you desire, what you want, been a real issue in your life, where you've got to really deal with self-judgment about just being selfish.
Yeah.
Okay, because the word selfish has become so loaded, particularly by religions, as a counterman to your taking your own power, that word selfish, self-ish, I've had to reclaim for myself.
Okay.
I'm a sun in Aries, so that's a big part of my whole dynamic too. Because if you can't honor yourself, be self-ish
Yeah.
in a conscious and purposeful way, you cannot honor others. It's
Okay.
impossible.
I realize that.
And the Chiron and Aries would emphasize that issue in your
It's
own
in
life.
Pisces or something?
What's that?
What'd you say about Pisces?
Chiron is currently in Pisces and has been for the last 8 years, but Chiron will shift into Aries April 17th for the next 8 years.
Oh, wow.
So that'll begin your Chiron return. It's around the age of 51.
Okay.
But because you have Chiron and Aries in your natal chart, personally, you then become a living example of the opportunity of Chiron and Aries, and learning how to be divinely selfish.
Fun with that.
Okay.
How to honor yourself,
To myself.
and realize that if you're not happy, no one else is going to be happy. If you don't honor your own self-fulfillment,
Okay.
and realize that that's a requirement now. It's not just a sort of a nice thing to do. It's a requirement. that if you can't love yourself, it's impossible to love others. And loving and honoring your own personal fulfillment, because that's what Aries is all about. You set a whole new cycle of self-expression in a more authentic way in emotion, because Aries is all about being authentic. In terms of how we honor our personal drive for well-being. Yeah. Someone else said Chiron and Aries. So is that an issue? Has that been an issue for you also?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that all makes sense.
You know, Chiron and Aries people are great at really, motivating others to be happy. To go after what they want. They're really great coaches. They're great coaches and enablers that way. But when it comes to themselves, it's like, can I do that same thing for myself? And others around you may have challenged you to compromise, because you're supposed to be, if you're going to be a loving person, you're supposed to be unselfish, right?
So we're told.
Yes, and I've gone the opposite way. I realized that if I'm not selfish in a healthy way, I can't, be loving toward others, because I'm expecting them to be fully psychic and aware to open the door for me and give me permission to go after what I want, and that never works. So this is going to be quite a profound, dramatic, transition of a month. And like I said, April will be a prelude to the full culmination of this historical thousands of years of history coming to into full view in 2020. So I'm really going to be fascinated to see how this unfolds. In terms of how it's going to unfold or what is going to happen with it can't be known. Just because it depends on free will and how we engage with the opportunity. Someone have a question? Comment?
I was just going to say that for me, the word selfish, I've had to redefine it as self-preservation. Being such a giver, and giving to my family, my marriage, my kids, and everybody else. It's kind of like, it just got old.
Mm-hmm.
And it was about redefining, and for me it was like, oh wait, self-preservation. I've got to take care of me first, and then I can give from a full cup, and it became more fun. So.
Yeah, well, Chiron and Aries will ask you to take that one step further. Beyond self-preservation, the self-love is acknowledgement, where you give as much to yourself as you do to others. And that same overflow is experienced in your receiving as well as your giving. Otherwise, Chiron and Aries can really box you in to the point where you just have to blow the barn down and finally say, that's enough. I got to do what I got to do. I got to do what I want. Yeah. I just heard someone talk about The Notebook, the movie The Notebook. Anybody ever see that? And there was a certain point where I believe the woman had to decide what to do between two men, and she kept trying to bend her decision into the will of the two men, being concerned about what they want, or how her behavior will impact them. And her true soulmate just finally grabbed her by the scruff of the neck and said, "What do you want?" She says, "Really? I mean, that's the hinge upon which the decision turns." That will be the Chiron and Aries opportunity to really authenticate our drive, so that we don't seek to realize our own happiness and fulfillment through blessing another and fulfilling their dream, rather than being authentic and fulfilling and taking to heart what we truly desire for ourselves. So if there's any time to learn how to be divinely selfish, it'll be over the next 8 years. But that's only the beginning of that turning point, because Chiron will then go retrograde and go back into Pisces for a period of time, and the real new beginning of that cycle of the me generation resurfacing will begin by the end of the year. So, any other questions at this point? Comments? Yeah, the new moon will be on the 15th of April, tax day, and that is the day that Mercury goes stationary direct. Mercury is currently retrograde, as many of you know, in the sign of Aries, and he will back up to the sun on April 1st, on Sunday, really picking up his new level, his new mission. Whenever a celestial combines with the sun, they check back in with upstairs and are given a new mission in terms of how to radiate their true identity or true authenticity from the source itself. And Mercury connected to the sun is divine guidance. Mercury is actually the esoteric ruler of Aries, which suggests that he is called by the higher power in Aries to be the divine messenger, the fiery messenger, the hawk medicine. The hawk takes the medicine, the message from the eagle, who's directly connected to the source, and then takes it out to the people. Mercury in Aries is that kind of hawk medicine. But because he's retrograde, we've been asked to be careful in how we start fires that can turn into flame wars. I already had my own personal experience with that, responding to a Facebook question. And I said, whoa, brother, be careful here. Don't just respond. Don't allow your fire to get ahead of you and set the barn on fire. Have any of you had a little issue with that? Yeah. And you're just going along in a conversation and you just spontaneously say something that started a little bit of a flame war. So I need to be more conscious and careful about how I light matches in a room full of straw. So this is a golden opportunity for us to be more conscious and purposeful about handling the power of our words and the fires that we set. And by mid-April, with that new moon in the last degrees of Aries conjunct Uranus, Mercury going direct, we will have completed a little bit of a lesson in being more conscious about the fires that we set. And if anyone's connected with forestry, you know, there are those who are tasked with setting controlled burns. Anybody know what a controlled burn is? Yeah. So they'll purposely set a whole swath of forest on fire to prevent a larger fire from devastating the entire forest. And that's kind of like the Mercury and Aries opportunity to be more conscious about how we use that fire in our communication with one another. So, the full moon is actually 5:37 a.m. on Saturday morning. So basically all night, the energy is building. Because as the moon builds to fullness, there's a certain pressure that builds, which is what we may be feeling right now. It's like, and then as she reaches fullness, the energy pops and begins to disseminate outward. It's like a dramatic difference between a minute before the full moon and a minute after. And then Saturday morning, actually the moon will reach Mars, will square Mars first at 12 12 p.m. just after midnight tonight, then square Saturn at 2:22 a.m., and then reach fullness at 5:37 a.m. So those of us who are going out to party tonight, stay conscious, because Venus will have shifted into Taurus tonight at 10 p.m. So that's kind of a saving grace to keep, reminding ourselves that we're here to have fun and not precipitate a forest fire or contest that can lead to unintended consequences.
So then Mars and Venus would be trine? Saturn to Taurus? I mean,
Yeah, Mars
Taurus?
Mars is at about 8 degrees of Taurus. 8 degrees of Capricorn, and Venus just having entered Taurus. There'll be a wide trine, and there'll be a
So in a couple
flying.
in a week or two.
And yeah, Venus will reach the trine aspect on the 10th of April. So I should be closing in on that trine, basically first 2 weeks of April. And that'll be a nice supporting aspect to alleviate some of the greater challenges that arise with this Mars and Capricorn, combining with Saturn and then Pluto. And right on the day of the new moon, on the 15th of April, Mars will also be conjunct the dark moon Lilith. So that's a real punctuation mark for everything I suggested about Mars conjuncting Saturn and Pluto, in right relationship to our own personal power and having an impact on the larger destiny of others around us, and taking our place within our communities and the world at large in a way which commands the respect of others. I've been listening to Hank Wesselman, thanks to Sophia here. And anybody familiar with Hank Wesselman? Yeah. Beautiful brother. And we were doing a journey last yesterday, and he asked us to connect with our greater destiny, our guide who's like the chief influence on our realizing our greater destiny. Is that right? Was that the right wording for that? And surprisingly enough, I was, Enki showed up. Do you know who Enki is? Enki and Enlil, the Anunnaki brothers. They were the ones in charge of basically the earthly project of the Anunnaki who landed and set our present civilization in motion. And I've been very connected with that story personally myself. And then I said, this question came into my mind about why the Anunnaki were so driven to survive, because apparently their planet was on the verge of going extinct. And it just opened up into a larger question of the whole drive for a civilization or a species to survive. And then I realized Saturn was talking to me, and that reason I'm bringing this up is because April is such a Saturnian month. Saturn rules Capricorn. And he's in his own sign now. And he started telling me that he's the master and sustainer of a field of experience, the medicine of the manifest world. He's the last planet visible to us by our physical eyes. So he's the master of the manifest world. And Saturn himself is the sustainer of a field of experience that enables us to set a rhythm and dive into the greater depth and explore the field of experience that's offered. The difference between the manifest world and the world of the spirit is that the spirit moves and changes. There's no coherent, sustained form that empowers or enables us to dive into the depth of a particular form. As you know, the dream time, when you're in your dream world, you know how the dream world will shift and change. And it's very rare that you have a coherent sequence of events in a dream that act as a story. Are you following me on that? Yet the manifest world, because Saturn sets a limit or particular pattern to a field of experience, offers us, the spirit, an opportunity to really dive into that experience in sustained effort to find out the true nature of that field of experience. So that's the medicine of the manifest world, as we have within the limits of Saturn's manifest experiential framework, we have the opportunity to set a rhythm and dive deep into the experience and nature of that field of experience, to gain wisdom from it. So many of us have heard the idea of being limitless, but Saturn says, okay, and if you want to manifest, you've got to have the courage to limit yourself to a particular field of experience, and that's your Saturn. Wherever Saturn is in your chart, it will describe the field of experience that you've chosen to master. So our giving ourselves to what appears to be a limitation or a field of experience is actually the opportunity to gain deep wisdom about the nature of that particular field of experience that Saturn has created for you. So each one of us can say that our life story, our life experience, is a particular limited field of experience that we have dedicated and given our lives to because it has meaningful purpose. And that allows us to explore the greater meaning of ourselves and the life around us through having a commitment to explore that field of experience. Now Uranus comes along and shifts the whole pattern and changes the story, but with Saturn involved, the opportunity here is to give ourselves fully to the field of experience that we have manifest and gain the wisdom inherent within it before we attempt to move beyond it or change it. And once you recognize the gift of your present circumstance, the life you created, the gift that it's offering you, then it will naturally shift and evolve to the next field of experience that offers greater possibility. So some of us may have felt hemmed in by our personal journey, our personal life experience, trying to break free of it. But Saturn's saying, give yourself, rather than trying to break free of it, give yourself and commit yourself fully to it. And then you will gain an understanding and the wisdom given by that experience that you've created. And then naturally you will be freed from it because you realize the wisdom inherent in it. So have any of you felt like this heaviness, this sense of really being held within a certain boundary? Yeah, that's Saturn's influence saying that you're not, there's a gift being offered here that you haven't quite fully realized. And before you seek to break free of it, listen to the experience itself and allow it to speak to you. And then once once you've heard Saturn and his determination to give you that gift, then doors will begin to open for the next embodied experience or field experience to present itself. Okay. I know I've kind of gone off the deep end here a little bit, but I wanted to share that with you. And each one of you will find an understanding of what I've just shared in your own words. Anyone have any questions or comments? Okay, brothers and sisters, I think we've done it.
Thank you.
Much love.